today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create a word and character counter using vanilla JavaScript that loads on load, as well as whenever you type in the text box. Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of DevDrawer. Today we're going to be working on creating this countdown, or not countdown, but it's going to be a word and character counter in JavaScript. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is set up my folder structure. So I'm going to create a new folder called JS, and then inside of this JS file folder, I'm going to create a new file, and it's going to be called count.js, which is going to contain all of our JavaScript. And then I'm also going to create a new folder for my Sass, and then inside of this we're going to have a new file that is called style.scss. And I'm also going to, I already have my server started so you can see it over here, but I'm going to go ahead and watch Sass so that we can generate our style CSS and style min.css inside of a CSS folder. Okay, so now we have our folder structure done. So let's start with the basics. So let me bring this down a little bit. And let's start with an HTML5 layout. And we're just going to call this, let's see, character and word count. Or let's do counter. Okay, so inside of this, let's just create some structure. So let's do, the first one is going to be, let's do div class main. And then I want to have, let's just do a title. And that title is going to be count your, let's go ahead and split it up into two. So let's do count your words and characters. And then I'm going to basically display it where it's going to be a card here that counts your words and a card here that counts your characters, or vice versa. And then we're going to have a text area, and then below it I'm going to show you how to do it in a sentence structure. So let's do the first one, and let's do div class card, and I'm going to have two of them. So inside of the first div we're going to do words, and then I want to have the actual word count be a span. So we're going to do span word count. And let's just set it at a default of 0. And then in our second card, we're going to do characters. And then we're going to do another span, and it's going to be, let's just call it character count. And then let's also start that off at 0. And then let's do a text area here. And this is going to be counter text area. So counter text area. I don't really need any of this stuff right now, so we're just going to get rid of this just because it's going to be styled through CSS. Let's put in some sample text. So let's just say this is sample text that should be counted on load. So I'm going to show you how to do it on load, and then also whenever you type inside of the box as well. Okay, I don't know why that was reacting weirdly. Okay, apparently it does not like the spacing on that. So let me just wrap that around. Okay. And then finally, let's add it as a string inside of the text. So let's do something like you've written, and then we're going to do span word count again, so we can use the same span. And let's set it at 0 again. So you've written 0 words, and then we're going to do span character count with 0, and then let's just say characters. Okay, so this is like the basic text. So let's add some style to it. So I'm going to click over to our style SCSS, and I'm just going to import Open Sans from Google. And you can use whatever font that you want, but that's what I'm going to use. And then I'm going to set up some generic information for the CSS. So I want my font family. Let's make that Open Sans, and then sans serif. And then I want my font size. Let's just make that 16 pixels. And then let's just set a primary color so we can use that in the rest of it. I'm just going to use my default blue. So 38A for EF. Okay, so that'll kind of get us set up. So let's do our body. We're going to do font size. This is going to equal to our font size. And then our font family is going to be equal to our font family. And let's set a width of 100%. And again, this is mainly styles for this tutorial. You don't necessarily need to use any of these styles. It's just how I'm going to be displaying everything. So this is just going to display the boxes appropriately. So let's do minimum height 100, vertical height. Background color is going to be our primary color. Oh, it's not changing because we need to add this up here. So let's do link rel equals, let's see, style sheet, and then href equals, we're going to do CSS, and let's just do the style min. There we go. So now it's updating it. Okay, and also while we're in here, let's go ahead and add in our script. So we're going to do script source. This is going to go to the JS folder, count.js. So when we start working on that, it'll automatically start updating. Okay, so now back to our SCSS. And let's just add in some defaults. So padding margin 0. And let's set the color to be white. Already did font size. And I'm just going to set overflow hidden just because I don't really care that it has anything on it. Okay, so now let's do our main. And I'm going to set this to width 60%. Make everything centered. And let's do a 10% auto margin. Okay, so that'll kind of get us a little centered in the screen. Okay, so let's do our H1 and our H2. Set a margin 0 and a padding 0. Now for our cards, we're going to set the background color to be white, and then we're going to add a little bit of padding around them. So let's just do, well, that's a pretty good amount of padding. 3 rem, let's do a border radius as well. So border radius, let's just say 5 pixels. And let's set the width to something like 200 pixels. Okay, so let's display them in line block. And set a margin of 1 rem. And let's make the color on the inside of those like an off black color. There we go. So let's see, our box shadow, to just give them a little bit of character. Let's do 15 pixels, 15 pixels, 0, 0, with a semi-transparent color. It's 2.2. All right, that looks good. And let me make sure I got this thing zoomed out. So there we go. I just had this as a small window for the preview, so that's the reason why it was kind of wonky moving over wrapping, just because I'm zoomed in a lot and the window size is very small, so it was just naturally wrapping, but that's the way it should look. Okay, so now let's do, inside of this, we're going to do our spans, and we're going to do font size. Let's do like 2 rem and display it block. Okay, let me zoom in just a little bit. Nope. Well, all right. Hopefully that's easily readable on your screen. On my screen, it's a little small, but you can still see what it's doing. Okay, so now let's get out of our card and do our text area style. Let's do display block, padding 3 rem. No, you know what? Let's not do any padding. Let's do the width. Let's make it calculate it 100% and 2 rem. What did I do here? I think we need a space. There we go. All right. So our width, let's make it height 200 pixels. Border is going to be 0. And let's add a margin of 1 rem on top and bottom. And let's see, padding. Yeah, let's go ahead and do 1 rem on that as well. Font size, and let's just make that equal to our font size. Let's give it a border radius. So let's do a border radius of 5 pixels again. And then once you focus in there, we do not want to have the outline. So let's do outline none. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now let's do some styling specifically for those spans. Let's make them bold. So we're going to do word count and character count. And this is just going to be font weight bold. Okay, so it's bold there and it's bold within our sentence. So I think that's pretty much the styles that we need. So I guess we can close out of this now and we can stop watching our Sass. We'll watch it again if we need to. Okay, so now we have the design of it pretty much set up. So the count.js class is pretty easy, and you can pretty much use it anywhere as long as you're using those classes. So let's do class count. And then inside of the class, we're going to do a constructor. So a constructor, and we want to get the names of all of our stuff. So let's do this text area equals document dot query selector, because we're only using one, and it's going to be counter text area is what we called it. Then let me close this so we can see a little better. Okay, so let's also do the same thing. I'm going to copy this 2 times, and we're going to change this to word count, and we're going to change this to character count. And for this one, since we have it in multiple places, we're going to do query selector all, because we have it in the text here as well as the boxes here. So we have multiples, So we're going to change that. So now this is going to be word dash count, and then this one's going to be character dash count. Okay, so that is the 3 fields that we need. And I think I'm going to run this function on load, so it'll actually count out what is happening here. So eventually we're going to have to put in this character count, but let's go ahead and create the functions that we're going to actually run. So we need to count the words. Let's create a constant value equals this dot, so this dot text area dot value dot trim, and if the value doesn't exist, we're just going to return 0. Otherwise, we're going to return the value dot split. Let's see, split. And this is basically going to be telling it that every single time there's a new word, we're just going to return the count of those words. So it's going to be splitting it up based on the new lines, or not the new lines, but the spaces. The way we're going to do that is we're going to run a regular expression, which is going to look like this. So that should run based on the spacing, and then we're just going to do dot length. Okay, so now that should count our words for us. So now let's create the same function for count characters. This one's a little bit more simple. So we got our count characters function, and it's going to return this dot text area dot value dot length. Okay, so now we need to create a function that updates this on an action, whether it's on load or eventually whenever you type in something, it does the function there. So this is going to, let's just call it update count, and let's do our constant num words, and this is going to be equal to this dot count words. And we're going to do the same thing for num characters, this dot count characters. Okay, so now that we have our functions that are returning the values, we need to reflect that inside of the divs that we've created, or the spans that we've created for these updates. Okay, so we're going to do this dot word count dot for each, which is going to be this span. So this word count for each word count, and then we're going to run our function, and it's basically just going to say something like word count dot text content equals num words dot toString, and let's just set it at 10. And I'm going to take this function, because it's the exact same function pretty much, for the character count. So from word count to character count, and let me copy this. So character count text content equals num characters dot toString 10. And then we are just going to call this new class whenever the script is loaded. So now we're able to call the class, but we're not able to call this function yet. So inside of our constructor, whenever this class is called, we want it to add a window event. So we're going to do window.add event listener, and it's going to be on load. We're just going to do this update count dot bind, and then this. So now you can see here it's counting 10 words and 51 characters, but if we go to type into it, nothing happens. So if we reload the page, every single time it's counting the characters. So we also want to add in a new function that's going to be on input. So we're going to do this dot text area dot add event listener on input this dot update count dot bind, and then we're going to rebind it. So now it doesn't matter what you're typing in, it is counting your words and your characters, and it's updating in both places. So pretty easy script to do. And again, you could reuse this as long as you're using that word count, character count, and if you wanted to, you can do multiples for your count text area. You would just change this from query selector to query selector all, so you can have it in multiple places. But I mean, this script's pretty easy to use. It's pretty easy to create. So if you wanted to have a character counter on your website, or if you're building something that requires a character, letter counter, word counter, hopefully this is an easy tutorial for you. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and let me know you liked it. If you don't, just tell me why, and I'll try to make it better next time. But I think that's going to do it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.